Hello, my name is Blake Buettner, Managing Editor of Worn and Wound. Today we are talking about the Rolex Explorer. We've got a lot to say about this watch. We've got a few owners here, and I'm thrilled to be joined by a couple of guests.
I'm Zach Weiss, co-founder of Worn and Wound.
And I'm Kat Shoulders, the Media Production Manager here at Worn and Wound.
So the Rolex Explorer obviously has a very interesting and sordid history. Maybe is not all it's cracked up to be in some ways, in terms of the Everest story in particular. We have a whole review on this watch, including video that we'll link down below. If you want to read some of the nitty-gritty about that stuff, go check that out. Today we're giving you our perspective on this watch as owners of the watch, and we're going to talk a little bit about our experiences with the watch, why we selected the watches that we have. We have 3 different references here, and maybe what they say about us. First, just touching on the Explorer in general. Rolex is obviously known for their sports watches, and to me this is the kind of quintessential Rolex sport / field / tool watch. It's all of those things, but it's maybe, in terms of the modern Rolex lineup of professional models, the most un-Rolex watch there is. But it's also, in a historical perspective, maybe the most Rolex watch there is. So, I think it balances these 2 things out really interestingly, and it seems to be a watch that people who don't maybe own or are fond of Rolex might have in their collection. Like you. So tell us about the, Kat, we'll start with you. What reference are you wearing on your wrist?
I have the 124273. This is the oyster steel and yellow gold Explorer. This is a new pickup for me. I've had it for about 3 or 4 weeks. I picked mine up just after you did, Zach.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, I feel like this is it's a weird, underrated Rolex. It's weird to say because it's so popular, but for me, I've always been drawn to Rolex's divers, GMTs, and I've always just kind of overlooked the Explorer. It's been amazing. It's a watch that was very surprising to me because, I thought Explorer's cool, but there wasn't really anything special about it. And with the yellow gold, it's got that oomph that I kind of needed. I kind of needed.
So I know that you're a person that has a fondness for large tool watches.
Yes.
How do you feel about wearing a 36mm watch?
Look, I'll be honest, one of the reasons I overlooked the Explorer in the first place was because of the size. I'm not a huge fan of 36mm watches, but putting this on the wrist, it is a little jarring coming from my bigger divers. Yeah. But when I look at myself in the mirror and I see this watch on my wrist, I'm like, that's the size I should be wearing all the time. It fits my wrist perfectly. It looks well proportioned. And so, I love the sizing. It's kind of opened me up now to wearing more smaller watches, which seems silly, but yeah.
So of course it balances out with the gold element, which brings enough heft to it so it doesn't feel like such a small, dainty
Exactly.
watch,
And I always found that the oyster cases just wear a little bit larger than their dimension size anyways.
Yeah. I'm of course wearing the same 124270 with no gold. It's all steel. The cousins. Cousins of the same thing. Also 36mm. You are wearing a slightly older reference of the Explorer. Tell us about this reference.
Yeah, so this is a 114270 from 2004. This was an interesting pickup for me because I think it was one that I sort of battled internally for a very long time, like years and years. It's my first Rolex, my only Rolex, and might maintain being my only Rolex for some time. For whatever reason, the model, particularly the modern Rolexes, just don't appeal to me for my collection. Nothing wrong with them, certainly just not watches that I feel particularly drawn to. However, vintage models I certainly am drawn to, as I think many people are. But I'm not so drawn to the prices. So there was a time, particularly a few years ago, when the 14270, and I guess also this model, really maintained a much softer price because they're weird neo-vintage models and kind of like the parlance of the day, right? They're in the 90s to early 2000s where things were kind of ignored for some time. That has begun to change. And I think, the Explorer, because of its size, had that allure, and, the 1016 is so beautiful. It kind of, I don't know, it was the one that just made sense to me, though, you know, I wouldn't say no to a president or something.
Of course, of course. Also, of course, 36 millimeters this generation. So the 30, you know, it's interesting. You mentioned the era of this, and then maybe being slightly under the radar for a lot of people. And of course, this was an era where watch sizes were kind of trending larger here for a period. So, of course, these at 36 millimeter watches, and of course, the Explorer itself went up to 39 before coming back down. So, you rarely see Rolex kind of take a step backward. In fact, almost never. This was kind of the most overt example of them kind of coming back into some historic details that worked for them. But there's one thing that's not quite the same that I think we should talk about a little bit, because I know that we're all maybe sensitive to the lug spans of these watches. Right. So I talked a little bit about it in my review and how it changes the kind of overall proportion of the watch on the wrist. So the Explorer's always had a 20 millimeter lug span, and with these newer references, they went to a 19 millimeter lug span.
So I have the traditional, the classic 20.
Classic.
Yeah. Whereas you have the 19. It's a very interesting watch proportionally. I was wearing it, and I had it on my desk next to the Tudor Black Bay Pro, which, you know, obviously sort of parts of the same family. Another watch I'm wearing quite often. They almost look the same size when they're just sitting next to each other. They both have 20 millimeter lugs. I think the dial opening is about the same size as well. And the presence, to me, isn't all that different, despite the smaller watch, because you have those broader shoulders. But then I have like a 37.5 millimeter Grand Seiko, another great size with a 19 millimeter lug. It feels much more slender, more elegant. I mean, there's other kind of case shape aspects going on there. But to me, it's part of the unique charm so far of this watch is that it wears bigger than it seems. And I mean, this is convincing me I could go 33 millimeters or something. Like, I don't even know. Like, this did not feel 36. Like, my watches are generally 40 to 37, but like in that 38 to 40 millimeter range. And this should have felt smaller to me, but it really doesn't. Like once I see it, I'm like, no, that's the size for me right there.
So it's interesting you mentioned the dial opening. It's actually the same diameter here as it is on the Submariner. Of course, there's no bezel. So when it goes to 39 millimeters and it's all dial, it feels to me much larger, just visually.
I like the 39, and I'll be honest, if they came back and made the 39 in the two-tone, I probably would go for it. I like the 39 size, and I think if they could make the numerals a little bit bigger to fill in some of that space, it would be nice. And who knows, like, with what they did with the Oyster Perpetual, they took away the 39, they added a 41. Will we see a 41 Explorer? Maybe. Who knows? No.
That would be huge.
Let's see.
But I for one really like the 39 size. So if they made it in a two-tone, I would be on board. Yeah.
What do you feel about the 39?
You know, it's been so long since I've seen one, but just based on the logic of what we just talked about, you know, I think that dial opening, particularly on a solid black dial without a lot going on, I mean, you know, there's markings, whatever, but it's not like a complicated dial, would feel very big and just, you know, feel much larger than the Black Bay Pro, for example. And even between these two dials, you know, these are the solid 369 with like a little line of white paint on them, and whereas you have lume fill, and I feel like that actually makes quite a big visual difference to these watches as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it really does. And I think that so ostensibly these are very similar watches. They're all similar watches. If you put these two next to each other at a glance, 99 people out of 100 are going to think it's the exact same watch. So obviously these two watches say a lot about the eras that they are from. 2004 isn't that long ago, but look at these boxes. I think this says a lot about where Rolex is right now and what they were just coming into the 2000s. You know, this is a very strange, funky box with like a mossy wood pattern on it.
I quite like it, you know.
It's kind of camo.
It looks, I mean, it's very, you know, it's an Explorer, right? This is about going outside, so it says that. But yeah, I mean, it's funny, we talk about packaging in the office maybe a little more than we do on camera in our articles, but you know, we live in Brooklyn, or most of us do, some people have houses, but big packaging is sort of a pain when you live in a small, you know, place. And I've been always, you know, sometimes you get packaging and it's like a humidor or something. It's just solid wood. It's really heavy. It looks like it costs a fortune. Do you need that? I'll leave that up to you. I personally don't. I like something sort of functional, but I like, you know, I'd rather the money go in the watch, I guess, than the packaging. But I like how stripped down this is, and yet it is fairly nice. So, you know, you have this printed box, and you have this sort of leatherette internal box, which, you know, it's all very solid and a little bit of wood.
I actually really like that
It's
design.
classy, but it is definitely like a little bit of a different generation.
This is a
You know?
classic look. I love
Yeah.
this. And you know, I think if you told somebody this is from like the 70s or something, they
Yeah.
would believe you because of how it looks. And this is kind of the, I don't know, more kind of flush trim, luxury experience type thing. And this is the outer box that you can compare. It's almost, you know, all the personality has kind of been lost.
The story starts from the box,
Yeah.
you know, and I think that is actually really a great thing about that packaging can do, is it can, you know, build an atmosphere for the watch and build excitement. This builds an atmosphere of luxury and deluxeness, which obviously you're paying for as well, but, you know.
Different vibes.
Very different
Different
vibes.
vibes, yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think, you know, you can, I'm sure people watching this will kind of draw their own, you know, see, this is what I've been saying about Rolex. You know, they've lost their way, all this kind of stuff. I mean, setting this aside, I think this is still kind of like, has a lot of the great kind of aspects that I really enjoy about this. You know, it's still true tool watch. There's nothing flashy about this. It's kind of everything that you need and nothing you don't. It fits just right. It's
Well,
not.
maybe you don't need yellow gold.
Maybe you don't need yellow gold, but that's fine.
You know what?
Well, look, and here's
You
my
do need
argument.
yellow gold.
Here's my argument. Like Rolex has been doing precious metal to watches for a long time now. It's nothing new for the brand, and so I know a lot of people threw a fit when they saw yellow gold on this watch. It's a tool watch. It doesn't need gold. They've been doing it. Look at the old GMTs, and yeah, I mean it's subs. So it's been around.
Sea Dweller.
Sea Dweller, yeah.
Has had a
So I mean,
two-tone model, so.
to me, it didn't surprise me that they did it, and I think at this point, watches more than tools are an extension of our style, of our personality, and like this watch is me. That watch maybe is not, but this one is, and so I'm certainly glad that there's like something for everyone now from Rolex.
Visually, though, these are very simple watches, and you know, even the two-tone, it's still not like a. It's not shouting, I'm a Rolex, look at
pretty
me,
subtle.
or anything
It's
like
pretty
this.
subtle.
I think these are easy watches to kind of wear around, wear under the cuff, wear on a train, walking around, and not really anybody bats an eye.
And I guess that is also part of the charm. It's like, it's so neutral. I mean, I've seen people call it boring, and it's like, I know, you know, it's not boring, but it is like, it's not exciting perhaps,
Yeah.
and it is comfortable, and it's just nice to wear, you know, like it fits so well. And the watch I replaced basically with this might have been way more exciting. It might have even been more aesthetically my style, but it wasn't as nice to wear. You know.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about that. These are very easy watches to grab and go. They're the kind of watch that you don't really think about you're wearing it until you need it throughout the day. And I really appreciate watches like that. And you don't have to stop to think about, oh, I'm going to do this active thing later. I better take that off. I mean, it's an easy watch to do pretty much anything in. And I think it looks pretty good in pretty much any outfit as well, which I really appreciate about watches. I've even run around the park with it because it's so light and easy.
How dangerous!
You know, me and my like shorts and whatever, just like going. I don't know. It's that's how I use my watches, or how I like to use my watches. So, and this is perfect for stuff like that.
So with Watches and Wonders coming up, what would be your dream Explorer release?
Wow, I don't know. To me, I like how this is. I would if they revisited the Arabic numeral design on the dial. I think that would be, and maybe went back into like a slight 1016 direction. I think that would be really interesting. Mm-hmm. And of course, every year the white dial version. Yeah,
it would look nice.
I think it would look nice.
Yeah. I could see a Polar
with with the black surrounds. It would be cool.
Oh yeah,
that would be very sharp.
I will say, I'll put it out there. They unveiled titanium last year.
Titanium, okay.
Titanium 36 millimeters. You wouldn't even know it's there at all.
That might. I mean, you really wouldn't.
Yeah.
This watch is a little over 100 grams right now, which is quite light for a full bracelet watch. I'm sure yours is a little bit
heavier.
A little bit more than that. Titanium, boy.
See, I was gonna say all gold, like
all
just go
gold.
super heavy. Yeah.
They should do both of those. That would be the nice
all
pairing
gold
this
and
year.
titanium.
Because all gold would
go left
be
and right
outrageous.
and live in both spaces. Yeah. Well, whatever. I think it's safe to say the watch isn't going anywhere. It's been a part of their lineup for so long, and it has such a great story to it. All right. Well, so that is the Rolex Explorer. I'm not going to say one. It's not a one. It's just the Explorer, right? Because there's the Explorer and the Explorer 2.
Yeah.
So, again, we have a lot more on this watch on Worn and Wound. We will leave a link to that down below. What are your thoughts on the Rolex Explorer? Let us know down in the comments below. What would you like to see in a new Rolex Explorer moving ahead? Which reference would you fancy? We're keen to hear all of it. And so thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. This is a kind of a look behind the scenes at our collections. Maybe we'll do some more of this moving ahead. Let us know if you'd like to see more of this kind of stuff. If you enjoy this content, please be sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, take care.